The number based on that scope.
Yes,
So
I'm talking about that middle spot, linking to that middle spot. Their estimate.
So it'll be a Nicholas's
If
records.
that's what, yeah. If
I
that's
think it's a question for Nicholas to say, if someone wanted to get at your details of how you got that, is there a way? I don't know. I don't know if we can go into their company's link.
This is probably more of like a PR committee thing, but I think we talked about before, like we have this, and this spreadsheet is available for people who want to click from a more like shiny, like how granular are we going to go?
Exactly.
You know, and
Every individual person needs to see.
It's not
I
about
think
every
this-
individual person needing to see. It's about the folks that do want to dig into it to that level, being able to answer those questions. I don't know what the square footage is on these projects by this list.
But I think I think we have to keep this, and this is an important thing. We are not trying to tailor this for I'm not thinking of every individual person, like John, I'm sorry. I'm not thinking just for you and do I get this information, everything that you want to know out of this document. We need to think about the whole and what do most need, how can we address the most people the best way.
And this was the piece that was missing.
Right, and we're starting with this piece. We know we can get more detail. We have to talk to Nicholas. What about, we can ask them, what about people who want a little bit more? Is that part of your records and your database that you look at? Is that possible? We can get a yes or no. Yes. How do we do it? We figure it out. But I think we just have to be careful and like getting in fine details and how did you get, we have the answer that Joe gives us and we have to use that and say, okay, we're trying to find the best way to get even more detail for people that need it. But for this document, I want to be careful not to get to that agreement. We'll never get it done.
Varying degrees of, like, our 10-year life safety has that square footage listed. This is essentially like a comic book version of that list to make it more accessible.
And we talked about this before, like, is there a way to link those? Yes. Can we work on tying those two together?
We have to make the connections. We don't have to put them in here, but we have to show them. If someone wants to make those connections, we have to show those connections. This information has not been missing, and plenty of people found the 10-year life safety. Not found it, we put it out there. Plenty of people saw it because it's all been in public documents. The list of not the previous list, but this list in a different format during the last time, and the questions came in at where do these things come from? Again, it's that question of, okay, this is the description, find this is how much it costs, and how do we get to that cost? So if there's a spot where someone wants to dig in deeper to get that answer, we're allowing them. I'm not saying link to everything, and I'm not saying fundamentally change this document. I'm saying if we've got scopes in places where someone wants to know how many square footage, maybe it's linking to the 10-year life safety, which is a much more technical document, okay? And lots of folks who are seeking out more information might be more technical and want to be able to dig into that document where it does have a lot, where it's not needed here. However, the connection to it is needed here. This is the place that I want to go to get to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I want to say something real quick that might be helpful to the administration that has to turn this into action after tonight, and that is that this can be improved upon. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't be published until it's improved upon. In other words, if that's an improvement that can be made to the document, but that's going to take time to implement that improvement to the document. We should publish the document.
Thank you.
And make that improvement.
Yeah.
So I think we go back to the question, is this, yes, we can make dots like, hey guys, let's do this to this, but we need to answer the question, can we start with this? What do we change just fundamentally to this? Not like, we know we have your questions and that's something that, okay, that's part of our task. We're gonna put that on our task list because we have to connect this all around. But does this document, does this explain and give people a start to look at that they've been looking for, easy to find? Is it like I see my red, I see the yellow, I see the green, I see the building, I see cost, and we all know that, where do the numbers come from when we start that, but we know we have to dig into that. But I think we have to stay solidly on that question. What, like Carlos says, is this something that's ready to be put out so that we're not working on this 6 months from now saying, oh, well, we didn't find a link yet. We have to answer that question. Right, exactly.
And like this, you need to present this to my wife, $158,000 for parking lot. She has no concept of that. It's like, going to the grocery store, what do you pay per gallon of milk? You have a unit, you have a unit, you have a gallon, how much per gallon? This.
Right.
Square footage wise, how much per square? 100 square.
And we have to be ready for those definitions and explaining it.
You can defer to the defined scope all day long.
Yeah.
Make Joe's life-
Exactly.
Because
Right.
it
No, you're right.
would monopolize.
That's what we are trying to avoid a little bit.
I think Joe would
Right.
say it's getting close.
Put it as simple as possible, this is everything, like square
Right.
footage sizes or not. Like, I could put the square footage on there, most of the public isn't gonna know what roof we're even talking about. But this is the details of every needed project in the building.
It's a high level detail.
But this is the detail that the public has been looking for, tell us what these buildings need. This is it. This is
That's
it.
not an accurate statement. This is some of the detail that the public has been asking for, and other parts of the public have been asking for how we got to this detail. We heard that
Isn't that,
plenty.
I feel like we're talking in circles, 'cause
Yeah.
we just talked about that. That's when we link to Leggett and these other people, we've consulted experts.
Yep.
And here's how they do it. So we can't keep going around and
We
around,
wanna know
like,
what the buildings need. This is what the
Yeah.
buildings need. You've hired educated professionals, the highest
Yes.
in their field, the best school architects in the area. This
That's
is
where the
what this
numbers
thing
come from.
costs. I don't know how else to validate this.
We're just missing information. We actually have it all.
But we have the
just
blurb that we
it
need
all
to
to-
write to explain their
Yes.
calculating process of each of these numbers.
and then this does in fact provide a lot more detail in an organized way that we didn't have before. So I think this is a good next step. And will there continue to be people like
And
who
questions?
don't
Yes.
trust this? Yes, but I think generally speaking, this is a huge improvement. And then let's see what questions we get.
Maybe add an last updated date onto it,
It's a good idea.
okay? Make a,
A version.
concerned effort to make it a living document, and maybe adding something along wherever the link is that, hey, 201 for August 12th, 2025. Roll call.
Leah Conover.
Here.
Carlos Avia.
Here.
Jessica Redonio.
Here.
Adina Hoover.
Here.
Kevin Marin.
Here.
Lauren Zakiri.
Okay, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry. Whew. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First piece of information on the docket, we have received a board member resignation, which, as we all know, triggers a filling period of time, 60 days. We have a choice. We are still in a spot where we can utilize the previous election results as we did for the previous board member. So what would you guys like to do? Would you guys like to do what we did last time, which is we do the suspend policy and then appoint the next person in the election from the April election results, or go to a posting process and post the position and go through the interviews in 60-day pieces? Does
I
anybody
think so
have
long as
strong-
that person is willing, that it seems most fair to have the person who put in the effort to run.
Right.
Right, they presented themselves to the community. That's the reason we went to that list and those election results, because individuals presented themselves to the community and gave their credentials and did the work and went to the Board of Elections. So, yeah, we used those results that came from the community and went forward, as long as that individuals were willing. I think that process kind of vetted itself.
I couldn't agree more.
Great. Any
many-
need to go into closed session? Does anybody want to go into closed session to discuss it? Because this is technically a personnel.
No.
No.
Okay, so we are going to skip that closed session then. And the chair will entertain a motion to temporarily suspend Board Policy 270's procedures for board vacancies and to appoint Alexandria Mill to fill the board's vacant seat through the April 2027 election.
So moved.
Second,
Roll call.
Dr. Hoover.
yes.
Ms. Redonio.
Yes.
Mr. Avia.
Yes.
Mr. Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Conover.
Yes. Motion passes. Okay. So I would like to now bring up Alex to take the oath of office.
Right over here.
And come out there.
She go, where's she stand?
Right in the middle.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
Front and center, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to over here and I will say it and then you'll after me. You ready? Okay. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the member of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 201 in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois to the best of my ability.
I, Alexandria Mill, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 201 in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois to the best of my ability.
I further swear or affirm that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets.
I further swear that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district assets.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
I shall recognize that the board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive.
As part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district.
As part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district.
I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Community Unit School District 201.
I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Community Unit School District 201.
I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework.
I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework.
I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law.
I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement in all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law.
I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community's school or schools to advance the vision for Community Unit School District 201.
I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community school to advance the vision for Community Unit School District 201.
And I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Welcome. Let's get a picture. Yeah, let's get a picture. How about a picture with the fam? Yeah, heck yeah.
Will you take a nice picture?
Oh, boy. Cool. I walked through the rain.
Don't even, I walked 15 minutes downtown. Ready?
You're looking better than me, sorry.
2, look over here, say cheese. Cheese.
That's a good one.
Who we get the picture with?
Board members, we're going to take a new pic.
Maybe the whole board? The whole board or?
Whole board.
Okay.
If it's really bad.
I know. Let me see that picture.
We need a picture day.
Right.
We need a picture day.
Worse than my last one.
Come on, Dad. Glad you're ready to do it.
Let's get a picture of this board.
Come on, Dad.
Picture of the board.
Okay.
And you're gonna Photoshop Lauren in?
Gotta leave a space for
I
think she might have been on the side.
Ready? 1, 2,
Gotta leave room for Lauren.
okay.
We need a picture
Alex,
next.
right? I think I'm gonna need one just of you, and I may just add you.
That's
Okay. So if you guys can just step to the side. Okay, ready?
See that? I got out of it.
You did. You did. You did. You did. You did. Good job.
No.
There's gotta be an AI app. Do my best.
You guys are good.
You are sitting
Yeah, we're looking for
next to Lauren. Yeah, next to Lauren. So actually,
I'm gonna move this thing.
Oh, yeah, we can move that now. Sorry,
move the box.
we're busy looking for tech support. Just clean up.
Yeah.
Gotta be an AI.
Carlos will try to make you.
You too.
Good night, bye, Edith.
Take care of that. I'm gonna try. I will. You like cool jokes?
I'm a social studies teacher, so yeah.
Brandy, you going to?
Now you're gonna laugh.
You keep it with whatever you presented tonight? Yeah.
Do you want this?
Or we
We're
just keep
meeting
it copy.
Friday at 9 with your for about 15, 20 minutes? Great. Bye, Brandy.
Good night.
They headed out?
Bye, Carla.
I just.
Hey,
You want to know?
I'll see you in the morning.
Leah knows the most.
I need help
Yeah.
loading that PowerPoint for the new teachers. Thank you, ma'am.
And then after that, it comes.
Yeah.
Possibly be as high
High
as it
school
goes, but
board
okay,
does
whatever.
Adam, you gotta stay, I guess.
People say that, "Who's the second grade math teacher?" I'm like,
You're stuck, Adam.
Hang, you're stuck, sorry.
Yeah, you're in here.
Sorry.
Okay, moving right along, the board will, the chair will entertain a motion to enter closed session to discuss specific employees and probable or imminent litigation.
so moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Dr. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Redonio.
Yes.
Mr. Avia.
Yes?
Mr. Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Mill.
Yes.
Ms. Conover.
Yes. So moved. We'll be back.
You go back.
Closed session. There is no public comment, so we're going to go right past that. Approval of minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the July 15th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the July 15th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Okay, consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Personnel recommendations: Nancy Van Ness, Outplacement Coordinator; Dr. Nadine Norris, Interim Director of Technology; Vanessa Corley, Long-Term Sub, Westmont Junior High School Dual; Hector Solis, Long-Term Sub, Manning Dual; Stephen Davis, Teaching Assistant; Rebecca Hamilton, Teaching Assistant; Sharon Vazelnilek, take it, Head General Worker Food Service Miller; Rebecca Hildebrand, General Food Service Worker; Josh Ott, Teaching Assistant; Aaron Slattery, Teaching Assistant; Lauren DeGrantz, Manning Principal Secretary; Hadit Leone, Parent Liaison. Resignations and retirements. Number 2, approval of the August 2025 expenditure report. Number 3, ratification of the July 2025 regular payroll. Number 4, appointment of hearing officer. And number 5, approval of student tour requests, Westmont High School athletics.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Fredonia.
Yes.
Mr. Avia.
Yes.
Mr. Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Mill.
Yes.
Ms. Conover.
Yes.
Dr. Hoover.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, information and discussion. Let's talk about the handbook for 2025-2026.
Good evening, board, administration. My name is Adam Kordelewski. I'm the assistant principal at Westmont High School. And last April and May, I came in front of you and asked for more time to work on our handbook to modify it to an electronic format. We feel we have a 2025-2026 Illinois mandate compliant handbook to present to you. We worked real hard. We had a great team, and a lot of things came together. So we're excited about this new addition to for information for our community, our families. Hopefully that we have better communication with it now. A couple things about the handbook. We used the IPA Model Student Handbook, which was purchased from the Illinois Principals Association. Brian Schwartz, who's legal counsel to the IPA, made sure that it was legally compliant with the Illinois state mandates. So we were able to use that as a guide in addition to our district and building needs as well. So we put it together, aligned it all. We have kind of two divisions, if you will. One would be a general district information that applies to all buildings across the district. It makes it very easy for families to, if they need some information such as school contact info, you go to one page and you have every school over there. If you have a kindergartner and a 5th grader and a high schooler, you know all the information's right there. If you need the absence lines, one stop right there. So you get general information like that. The school hours are available if you forget when to pick up your kids because you have one in this building, that building. I've been there. I got 3 alarms on my phone. I'm going home. You gotta be like, where am I going? So visitor policies, things that are universal throughout the district, medical information. We had, 5 different handbooks with different procedures, but they're all the same procedures, So we made sure like things that were of district nature that apply to all the students, all families were uniformly aligned. And we have sections like that for community. Then you'll see that there's individual school building. All 5 buildings have a little bit of an area where they can share some things that are particular to their building. It might be locker use or bus pickup, drop-off procedures, lunch procedures, graduation requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So it was very nice to be able to put that. It has a table of contents, and they are all hyperlinked, so you don't have to scroll through the whole book. You can just click on the area and it'll take you right there. And we are going to post that on the websites as well for the community to use. Everywhere that there's a handbook now will be the district compliant handbook, and then we'll also add it to the district webpage too, which lacks the handbook because they're all individualized. So now you'll have many locations to be able to find the handbook and hopefully get the information that you need.
I can't say thank you enough.
Yeah,
This is
this is
like,
awesome.
I haven't said this in a little while, but this is like addition by subtraction in its best form, is subtracting out 5 separate handbooks that were PDFs that you had to scroll through and like couldn't possibly have matched and didn't match, and turning it into something that is much more user-friendly, works better for the families, works better for the parents, and from an administration standpoint, having the bulk of the handbook being the same supports the administration and the district in a much better way. And, you know, really focusing in on, okay, these are actually just the differences. Like, this is the definition of addition through subtraction. I love it, love it, love it, love it. You guys gonna post a video of it, of how to access
We
it?
do have a video. As soon as it's approved, we'll post. We didn't hire any actors, so it's going to be me. Not too critical. I did want to thank the team that helped out. Shannon Kosar was a big help in organizing this. Thank you. Dr. Nadine Norris also added technology input. Lisa Grippo worked on other schools and introduced samples that we were able to see, so that was really helpful. Edith Currington added her expertise. Brian Dunn helped with the athletic code of conducts. Ron O'Connor helped with the finances parts. Thank you, Ron. Sabrina Riemann worked at the junior high very much for them. Jeremy Bautista with the technology, and tomorrow he'll be working on posting this for us, along with Anna Vasileva and Edith as well. And I want to just give a special thanks to Sam Sinovich and Michael Lipinski, who really worked and picked up my technology slack and really helped us get going so we can get it to a modernized handbook. So thank you to all those people. And anyone I missed, I apologize, and we'll definitely get them later, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Okay. Moving right along, action items. Oh, we do have more discussion, don't we? I'm sorry. Tentative 2025-2026 budget. Ron? Need to highlight these. Check. Ready to go. Check. I'm going to circle these. I'm just so excited.
Yeah, sorry about that. Is it, oh, there it is. My apologies. So first of all, thank you for having me. Mr. Baldwin, Board of Education. This is a very preliminary budget from, for 201. Just so you know, there's a lot of it that is still kind of in process, but this is kind of what we're looking for, but we also have solutions. That's the big piece I want us to keep in mind as we look at things. It's all about evaluations and looking at what we can do to get better. So what I like to do, because when I was planning this, I was thinking to myself, this is probably the first major presentation I have to the board. And I wanted to just kind of reiterate and remind people, yes, I've been in this role for, well, in education for 20 plus years, teaching for 4, and then 16 in finance and operations. I've actually chaired at the state level, actually was the chair for IASBO, and I still do a lot with the federal level. I involved the community, I've presented at the national level. I also have a loving family that I always think about when I make these decisions, and I always consider myself an educator first. So with that being said, like to go through this. First thing is a timeline, and although it was a little bit messed up there with the final budget adoption piece, this is a typical timeline for what I've been anticipating for the district. I'll have a better one next year, a little bit more detail for how much a budget takes to create. It's a year-round process. So mostly, whenever I'm trying to create a project, I'm also trying to implement a project. It's 2 times at once. In the meantime, I'm also getting audited on the prior year. So there's a lot to it. It's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts. And we at 201 have a lot of great resources with that business office. It's Shannon, I give you a lot of credit too for assisting and helping out. So I wanted to give a recap. These are unaudited actuals compared to what was budgeted. So if you look at what the revenues were before, you could compare it. Education fund, there's a differential as well as O&M. Transportation had a decent one as well. But these were the revenues recap. This is what was budgeted versus what actually happened. Now, the auditors are still in the process of all of this. This is from us pulling up the data, looking at it, and stating, okay, what is it that we're looking at? What is it that's going to be put in fiscal year 26 versus 25? There's a lot of sorting through that occurs with that, and that's why these are unaudited information. The Ed Fund has probably the biggest differential there with the revenues. It was a $4.5 million differential. The expenses, it's a little similar. Same thing. Ed Fund is about almost a $5 million differential from what was budgeted, as well as others. So it kind of just shows a recap of what the budget is. A budget is supposed to be a roadmap. Roadmap's not always right. Roadmap can change. But it's always nice to look at what's planned versus what happens, so then you can react going forward. And that's one thing that you're going to see a lot with me especially.
And conservative, so.
Absolutely.
Coming in under what, or we budgeted for less than we actually received, which is ideal, as opposed to the other way around, budgeting.
This time around, yeah, well, what I'm trying to do at this point is try and grasp all of the pieces all at once within a small time frame. So when I say that it takes a year to figure out a budget typically, yeah, it's a year. This one was a tough one just because I wasn't really I was in it, but it's just digging and digging and digging just to see what there are, what processes were in place, how things are going for the district. So here's some things I can tell you because this is a state issue. This is a revenue issue. This is not just a Westmont one. Corporate personal property replacement taxes were pretty much based on 1978. The state of Illinois decided they were going to tax corporations based on the revenues they brought in rather than just the property value. So, as mentioned earlier in the finance facilities meeting, there was a lot of cash that was an influx from ESSER dollars, from COVID, to the respect that companies had to spend it, schools had to spend it. They were getting money, right? The PPP grants. Well, that money's now gone. That money was pushed into the system so that corporations were making major revenues, even though COVID was still in existence. Fast forward to now, money's gone, and the state has told us that whatever you probably received from last year, you're going to see a 41.3% drop, which is approximately $200,000 less for us. Mandated categorical funding is another example. That's an estimated 8% decrease. Every year it appears that the state they kind of push it off, right? What they do is they take the funding and they prorate it. And they're trying to do this also to kind of make up for a balanced budget because right now with evidence-based funding, they've been throwing in $350 million every single year additional. The money has to come from somewhere, and this is one of those examples. So mandated categorical funding, you're looking at all sorts of transportation, you're looking at different costs like special education, and that's been kind of a hit. I will have more information as to how much that's going to affect us definitively, but it's on everyone's radar. In the meantime, we have consumer price indexes. So what they do is, and again, the state doesn't just, these are some of these rules that we're talking about, they're just kind of made. So there's no real rhyme or reason. So January 15th, a lot of us business managers like to look and watch and see when consumer price index comes out. So that's just like the average of the increases of basic goods and services. It's actually CPIU that they typically use. It's 2.9% in December. So that's what they're saying, well, that's probably what to expect when it comes to a levy you're asked later on. The other thing is the district is a tier 4 district. We have a lot of reliance on local taxes, which you'll see shortly. And then the ESSER funding is gone. So when school districts received that influx of cash, it should have been spent because it is disappeared. One more piece to this that I didn't put on this slide, which is I want everyone to kind of think about for the future. You will remember that July 1st, there's approximately $6.8 billion in revenues, in grants that were supposed to be released to school districts across the country. They were withheld. Eventually, Republican senators, some of them put a letter together, they wrote to President Trump and they said, you can't do this. So they released it. Now, there's no telling what happens in the next couple of years, but that needs to be on the radar for everybody because that still affects us, even though we rely so heavily on local values. So your revenue breakdown in this district is about 90% local. And then the state is 7.3% of our revenues. Federal is only 2.8%. This is not the most normal piece. This is actually pretty high. So we do rely a lot on our locals. Of the local, about 70% of it is from home owners, which is, that's typical. That's more of a typical balance. Whereas then you have commercial and industrial, that's more of that, okay, they supplement it.
Does that change much? I think we have questions sometimes as we were in our last endeavors, that piece, the commercial part, is there, is that something, and I know nothing's readily, something that can readily change, but is that something that significantly change? I don't even know what significant is, but.
That's a great question. So when it comes to industrial and commercial areas, you can make a pretty penny by developing and bringing more in commercially. So if it is something of a development like that, that always helps because now they're taking that piece of the pie.
Right.
So when I was working at 59, when you saw the local revenue breakdown, it was actually like flipped. Residential was only 30%. Up in Leiden District 212, it's very similar as well because they have a lot of commercial and industrial. When it comes to a lot of homes, that's when you see a little bit of a difference. So that's something to think about.
It's not something.
We have commercial, we don't have as much commercial as, because again, we're a 2 square mile district. We don't include all of Westmont, so we don't have the same. Essentially, our business area is up on Pasquinelli, which does really.
But as people kind of throw out there, oh, have them pay more. Like that's not is that a reasonable thing that's done?
It all depends on the equalized assessed valuations that change over time. So as they increase, the tax rate actually decreases. And then it's an inverse. So as the tax rate increases, that means your values are decreasing. And that's something that's not in our control.
Yeah.
Bottom line is, it still relates to, you get the same dollar amount. It's just like who's paying what percent.
Okay.
Would this kind of relate to this breakdown, essentially, right? Residential versus commercial. If we were to look at like how much of our district is residential and how much of it is commercial, would this be would it kind of correlate with that? Like 75% of our spaces, or no?
I wouldn't say that, only because the commercial areas may be of higher value.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't take into account, remember that we do have a TIF area that has been frozen, so that isn't representative in here.
Yeah.
So that's worth thinking about as well. Personnel variables, just so everyone knows, certified, it's kind of varying based on staff members, but it's typically an average of a 4.5%. The WESPA contract called for a 4% increase. Custodial is a 4.5%. And then your insurance, health, dental, vision as a whole, from the EBC, it's actually only 6%. I've heard 15 to 20% for some of our local districts. So we should be grateful, but at the same time, it's still 6% compared to the CPI, which is the 2.9. So that's worth considering as well, thinking about. Other expense variables, so Sasset's transportation from Sunrise is a 4% increase. Westways is 6%. And then we budget pretty conservatively with services and supplies at 2.9%. The one thing that has helped extremely was the taxi costs and the parent daily rate, only because it's nice convenience, it's nice comfort, and there's an incentive for both sides. Other variables that we're really working on are the electrical and gas contracts, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and the sewer and water. So when you look at the expenses by the objects, so before we talk about this, salaries and benefits, you have about 76, 77% of your expenses. Purchase services, which could be contracts at 7.7%. Supplies is at 3.6%. Other, I can define that a little bit better. That's a lot more like tuition costs. I've seen a lot of that. Some special ed costs there. There's a variety that really stand out with regard to that. And then capital outlay, which we don't have too much of. But that's kind of what the district is when it comes to spending.
So is this typical for school districts, this breakdown?
Yeah, I would say it's typical, for sure. The salaries and benefits are always going to be the primary driver of expenses, for sure.
We've always kind of talked about salaries and benefits being more in like the 80 to 85% range.
Okay. Yeah.
Which looks like, oh. But this is typical.
Yes, definitely. So here's what we've come up with preliminarily with the operation funds. Now you saw before what the last years and we're looking at in terms of the 32 million in the ed fund. We do have the revenues for it. You also look at the expenses though. That is also approaching 32.5 from our estimation. That's a difference, right? Operations and maintenance, we're looking at even kind of cutting it a little bit, just like how we've been in the past. You're looking at a surplus there of $243,000. Transportation, we think we can break it even. We've done a really good job of kind of re-evaluating routes early on. I've talked to Laurent, who's for Westway. So we're looking to be about even on that one. And then working cash, that's a $20,000 revenue, just because that's the interest cost. So if you look at the revenues and the expenses, there is a deficit in the operating fund. To me, it's again looking at a lot more of what has happened and what we do as a roadmap to make it so we can go further and make things right. That's not to say nothing was going like horrible or anything, but it's just, it's one of those times where things are kind of changing when it comes to financials. When you're looking at revenues, there's a revenue problem, and expenses are still being expensive. It's the reality of things.
So the ask is, I mean, it's pretty close to a balanced budget, but there's a $270,000 deficit. We're asking the board, are you comfortable with that? If you're not, let me say it really quickly. It's a little tough to make changes, and part of this is that Ron just started literally a month ago. But we have a commitment in the upcoming year to look at places where we can cut to get it back to a balanced budget. Please.
A 0.72% variance on a $37 million budget is a balanced budget.
Yeah, really, all things considered. I was doing the same math. I was like, I'm of the same opinion. It is less than 1%.
So if you've worked with Mr. Balderman, you'll know he's a perfectionist. And I always appreciate that about him. He pushes me, he pushes everybody already. And I've only been working with him for how long, right? We do have a plan anyways that we thought, you know what, anything can always be better, and we're going to always make things better. So we'll talk about that in a few.
My point is that I'm comfortable with $273,000 in the whole after this year. That's not really my point. My point is this is budgeting that we're talking about. I'm sure that you're going to work your tail off every day to get us to zero. There's no way you could predict probably within 1% of where it's actually going to end.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you're within the margin of error, which is 1%, then it's a balanced budget. That's more my point. It's not about $273,000 negative being okay.
Sure, and to keep in mind, like I did the math over and over again. A major driver as well is the insurance costs. That's been, I mean, like last year it was $3.8 million that was being expensed versus the $3.5 million being brought in when we were collecting from the individual employees. That's hard to keep up with. And that's why
insurance and transportation has really
absolutely
has really hit us hard for the last 5 years.
It has been, and that's where it's the transportation piece is a difficult piece. I have some ideas, but we'll chat about that.
And combined with CPI
as
well. It's just been a bit of a storm.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate, Carlos, what you said about like it's not a deficit, because I feel like sometimes people will hold on to just like that sound bite. And yet I think I'm kind of in the perfectionist zone. I don't like it. Even though it's not that much. And I just want to, I think I mentioned this at a different meeting. I think we've been so focused on what's happening in operations and maintenance and the referendum and capital stuff like that, where I don't want to just have to year by year, because we've done this and you've done an excellent job of it, of looking at where we can consolidate and where we can cut. But I feel like we're always kind of clawing our way to the top, and I want to get to a place where it's more sustainable. And not like each year we're trying to figure it out. And so I just want to, I think as a board, decide on, especially in the finance committee meetings, besides figuring out the facilities and finance piece, like what are the other long-term sustainable changes that we can make so that we don't feel like we're in a position every year to navigate these changes that are happening with different funding sources and CPI and all of that. So there's like a little bit of that cushion. Does that all make sense? And then a little bit more.
The one thing that is a constant that I think the board is committed to and concerned about, to your point, Jess, is do we have that money in the fund balance? We have 40% or very close to that.
Yeah, it's close right now.
Protect us financially. That, to me, at the end of the day, how much we're spending and how much revenue is coming in are budgets, and it matters. But what, to me, how much at the end of the day are we left in our fund balance?
I was actually going to ask, aligned with that, can you just kind of do a very high level explanation of how fund accounting is different than kind of our budgets, right? Our home budgets, because it is inherently very different, and we've got the fund balance piece of it, and can you just do like a very high level kind of overview? Because I think that also ties into like the budget being not exactly perfect, because how we have to think of it. And
absolutely, so for example, when you levy for the taxes, there are buckets. You get the 10 fund, which is the education fund. It's the 20 fund, which is operation maintenance. 30's bond and interest. We don't even ask people. The county just puts it on them. 40's transportation. You can't just move money from bucket to bucket to bucket. It doesn't work that way. And if you do, you might be in legal trouble. Ask Lincoln Way about that. That was a couple of years ago, though. I do like doing transfers, though, when you have to bring it to the board. So, for example, the district is making a really good dollar with interest rates from investments. That's one thing I've really noticed as a strength. That's something where you can take that money and put it into different buckets depending on what its needs. It'd be great to get to that point where that one bucket in particular is the 60 fund, which I really love, the capital projects fund, where you can put the money into there and build that up so that we can actually hang tight and demonstrate we are saving in the rainy day, so that when we do need a big purchase or work with the buildings, we have it there. And it does not count against your operating funds. So you can spend as long as you have it in your bank. So yeah, there are 9 buckets typically. The district does have some health in it. I mean, that there's no denying that. We just want to make sure we write each bucket. So for example, the IMRF Social Security one. The district in the past spent down that particular bucket. So the corporate personal property money that was normally in the ed fund is going to be going into there to keep that bucket afloat. I can't then, once I put it in there, I can't take that money and say, you know what, I'm going to put it back in the 10. You don't just transfer like that. So you're kind of put in each single spot. So, and it's a balancing act. I think there's a lot of difficulty with other business managers that I know who've had that, especially if they've come from the private sector, because it isn't like your typical like savings, right? Where you can have one big savings account. Well, I don't have it in that one.
To use anywhere. You
Right.
have it.
And we also only get paid like twice in like 2 big installments.
Correct.
Essentially. So we kind of, at some points in the year, it might look like we've got a boatload of money in our fund balances, but the point is that the goal is to work that down over the course of the year, so essentially.
Absolutely.
So Ron, you used that phrase like writing each bucket. Like what do you see as the priorities for us right now? Which ones?
That's a good question. Transportation is kind of difficult, like Leah was saying, with the costs going up with that. The ed fund, the problem with the ed fund is this: it catches all sorts. Like you can pretty much build a budget and it just be almost in the ed fund completely. And so it's not just always about curriculum and instruction. You can do all sort of facility stuff in there at times. You can do all sorts of different work. So that's why it gets hit kind of harder than the others. I think what we need to do, actually, I will have the answer to that. Can I show you?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't even need the answer today. I'm just curious.
I have a plan that I've used in years past, and it really, I think it'll do wonders.
I have a quick question. So like on this budget, the transportation ends in the negative. So what happens if the transportation bucket doesn't have enough money in there to cover? What do we do then?
Then you got to find, you have to move like CPPRT dollars, or you have to do some transferring.
Okay.
Yeah. And you
There
can.
is a way to then pull and cover it. It's just difficult.
The IPAM, the Program Accounting Manual, is so, like, for example, you can transfer in certain funds, but then you can't transfer out. It's like somebody was really bored and decided they wanted to really mess with everybody.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it is. There's not really a simple way of going about that.
But the 40% fund balance is like that, is in there.
Yeah.
Is in the fund, right? So we're looking at like, for transportation, bringing in $2.5 million in revenue, right, essentially. There's more than $2.5 million in that fund right now by about 40%, or when we get all of our revenues in, because that's why we hold that 40% fund balance, so that if you've got like a little bit over, a little bit under, you're not in this point where you have to move stuff.
So yeah, for the 40% is your operating funds, but I will caution on that one just because that's where each one of these funds have a fund balance. So, because like you could have a 40% fund balance, but it could be all in education and zero everywhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not the case here. Just keeping that in mind.
Right.
So we're not worried about that.
Okay.
Yeah. I promise you, that wouldn't be good.
Yeah. And it's a board policy, we set the amount of fund balance, and it's been 40% for
40 is very healthy.
way over a decade, yeah.
The state recommends 25, just so you know. And then there's non-operating. So operating is the one the state really cares about. That's how they use your scores when it comes to anything regarding financials. The non-operating here, these are what they claim you can use with or without running a school, right? They're not worth operating. So you look at bond and interest, we get that down. The IMRF and Social Security, if it gets to a negative where it's kind of boom, where we talk about where you're at that negative fund balance, then it counts against you. So that's why we wanted to make sure that that was balanced this year. Tort, which is more legal, and if you can see is a total, that's pretty balanced. It's pretty straightforward.
Will this give us a positive rating with the state?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll still be in the 3s, which is
the rating dependent on
I got to see the
audit.
I got to look at the fund balance a bit more. That's what I'd have to do. So here are the recommendations that we were talking about. And there's the very first one to me is huge. A programmatic review of the district. So in years past, at one of my mentors, what she would do was you look at every single program. You look at the math department, social studies, extracurriculars. You look at the business office, the whole 9 yards. You take those numbers, you look at the goals of each of them and how are they implementing and impacting kids. You find the value. Then you look at the FTE, so you put that all in there. Salaries, benefits, you list everything that goes into that program with the cost, the amount of kids that are impacted, what they do, how their scores are based on that program. You, like, for example, with athletics, we looked at in the years past, what percentage of students who were successful were in athletics when it came to certain achievement goals. You tie in everything so it makes sure it's academic. And then, once that happens, you take that data, and that's when we talk and say, if I was to give this program 10% more, what would you do to make it even better? If I were to do 10% less, how would that program be affected? And you've got to be realistic with it. So when you're cutting FTEs, you can't just say, I'm going to cut by 0.4, because we don't have 0.4 in that particular program. It'd be one person, right? So you have to be realistic as to what those particular FTEs are. It's a great exercise in terms of also showing, I believe we showed the community, this is where we're spending our money and this is why we're doing it. And it turns into, they call it educational program review. So that, to me, with all the success that this district has had, would be very beneficial to show, hey, look, this is what your dollars are doing and this is why they're doing them. Also, I'd like to monitor, we'll actually closely monitor the cost of upkeep of all buildings. So when I get a text message from Joe Smith at Manning Elementary where the pipe was rusted through, like, you could barely even get into it, they got replaced on a weekend, and then it turns out a couple days later that same pipe is leaking further down. That's literally a bleeding cost. And I'm sure you may have done this in the past, but I think there needs to be, we're going to flush it out more. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, you can laugh, that was funny. So that's one piece as well. I also want to reevaluate vendor contracts. Everything is negotiable. So I want us to keep that in mind and think about that. If the cost is too high, it doesn't mean we say yes. Cash flow, it's sort of what we've talked about with the levy, making sure that we are actually seeing where we're at, where it's going, and having that reported as often as possible. And then the working cash fund, that's something I'd like to look at, as well as alternate revenues we can look at as well. It's about setting the district up for success. There's a lot of things that are going fantastic here. It's just a matter of, the word I keep hearing is communication, communication, communication. and proving it. It stinks to hear as a leader, but then you just got to do it. And I think these steps will help us at least show, and not just the community, but show the country that we're the best.
Data on top of data, right? Yeah, we love data.
How are those programmatic reviews typically received, and how much time? That sounds like a lot of work. It sounds awesome, but it sounds like a lot of work.
It'll take
like there could be some mixed feelings about it.
There will be.
Yeah.
The one thing, though, that I came here to do is to make sure that we're doing stuff data analytically and making those tough decisions with Mr. Balderman. He's been a fantastic person already to help me with looking through what do we have, and it does become more of a prove it, but it's almost like a competition where people want to prove that they're doing better and better for kids. So I think everybody does win. It's completely data driven. I remember the first time I did do it, when I learned it, I didn't put together a SMART goal, and I got chastised for it. Now, granted, I would have handled it the way I got in trouble for, I guess, but it really made me a better leader as well, because now I have, like we talked about in with our books and our reading, like the hedgehog theory. We're focusing on maybe 2-3 specific goals, doing what we have to do with that, and seeing how it's correlating with student success, the money we're spending. I think it could be something that districts don't typically do, but it would be worth studying, I think, if we get it done.
But it sometimes will uncover where we're spending money and not getting the value.
And
I just think that's a reality. I'm not opposed to it. I think it sounds like a great exercise, but that's the reality.
Feels like a very natural follow-up to the work that we've done with data in the last 2 years with our student data, which was hard and scary to take.
Evaluation, there was an adjustment there as well.
And really to dig in, it feels like because now I feel like that precedent has now been kind of set with student data, and now we've got a lot of great, routines around it. So now, let's tie it even more to a very tight budget. Let's make sure that all those dollars are.
The great advantage that this district has that many don't have is it is so data driven. I can't tell you how many districts really do that. They don't. They say it, but they don't. And this is a good example of showing the great things that are happening. And you know what? This is what you're paying for. It's a great place to be, but it's about showing it.
I think it comes full circle too, because we get hit with so many questions, and they're great questions. Like, people are holding us to task as we talk. Like, we've shown what we've done with student achievement, what we can do, and we can see even greater sites. But to tie that back, as we got questions of, simply put, it's a little annoying because we hear it. And how much money do we spend per student? Like, I'm going to give you a better question to ask me. And as we get that information back and we're able to deliver that, we see this and this program and how it turns out. Like, that's the goal, right? Is to
correct. And
give some data to our spending and things like that.
The data does it, and the thing that the state, when they do the funding process and the programmatic costs and how much, the one thing that I've grown to learn is that, there is a state standard, which is great, but then there's above that. What is that? That's what Westmont should be. So if we are spending a little bit extra because of students really achieving, that's a good thing. That's a great thing. But we also have to make sure that it's being spent equitably and in the right places.
And I think also something else too that we said that, this is going to come up. Things like the programs that we have brought out to fruition, and these kids are doing great. What's things that get cut? How is that going to impact how our kids are learning? Also, because there may come a time that something has to be cut or something has to be changed. Sure. What's the detriment? Because some people are like, oh, I had a one-room school and I learned, and well, you're gonna lose this benefit and this benefit. So.
Yeah, kids are different now, right?
Yeah.
So,
but that it ties it gives that data. So hopefully we can answer that as we get closer to making decisions all around, I guess.
Are you going to stick up there for the next discussion item? Facilities and Finance Committee update?
Let's do it.
Stay. Okay, committee meeting recap.
So the Facilities and Finance Committee, I think we got some very valuable feedback from board and community members regarding trying to express, here are the projects that each of our buildings have and how can we attack them. It was extremely beneficial in terms of trying to find out also in layman's terms how to reach everyone and being able to show that the data and how we get those dollar amounts can be specific for people. Like, it should be beneficial for them to be able to click on a link, be able to get to that information that we may already have or what our vendors have, but being as transparent as possible. So we're going to go back, we're going to look at it, we're going to do some revisions, and by September 1st, we'd like to roll out our information, specifically with projects in each building.
With intention of updating.
Yes.
Keeping it up to date. Asking
Yes.
folks for what else do they,
Live,
how else can we do? A living document.
yes, living document.
And let them have the depth of information, let them dig as far as they want.
Yep. Give them the links.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. Okay. Policy first reading? Who's got
Thanks,
that one?
Ron.
It's you, Kevin.
Next one.
Thank you.
That's me.
Policy.
It's definitely not me.
Definitely not me.
It would have been me.
Let's see.
Rain kept me away.
We went over, and actually, it was with Shannon, it was bookmarks, footnotes in the documents. It was reviewed by press, and just mainly footnotes within the document, so nothing earth-shattering, nothing earth-shattering, really. So.
Yeah, there were 5-year reviews of the policy, so they just updated legal references.
Right.
So what's the process from here? This is the first reading. We'll have second reading and approval at the next meeting?
Yep.
Great. Okay, moving right along. Action items. Now we're at action items. The chair will entertain a motion to authorize and direct the treasurer to pay any additional bills received in August that had been budgeted for in the current or prior fiscal year as presented.
So move.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Redonio.
Yes.
Mr. Avia.
Yes?
Mr. Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Mill.
Yes.
Ms. Conover.
Yes.
Dr. Hoover.
Yes.
Motion passes. Approval of our student handbook for 2025-2026. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the CUSD 201 student handbook for the 2025-2026 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Avia.
Yes?
Mr. Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Mill.
Yes.
Ms. Conover.
Yes.
Dr. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Redonio.
Motion passes. Approval of tentative budget. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the tentative 2025-2026 budget as presented, and that said budget will be available for public inspection in the district business office from August 13th, 2025 until board adoption on Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Mill.
Yes.
Ms. Conover.
Yes.
Dr. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Redonio.
Yes.
Mr. Avia.
Yes?
Motion passes. And do we have to have the public hearing? When's the public hearing?
At the last September.
On the
meeting.
September 23rd? Okay. So the 23rd will have the public hearing when we approve it. Awesome, okay. Approval of contract with Legat Architects. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the contract with Legat Architect as presented.
So move.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Mill.
Yes.
Ms. Conover.
Yes.
Dr. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Securi. Oh, sorry. Ms. Redonio.
Yes.
Mr. Avia.
Yes?
Mr. Marin.
Yes.
Approval of amendment to contract with Sunrise for special education transportation services. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the special education transportation amendment to contract with Sunrise to be effective July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2028 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Conover.
Yes.
Dr. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Redonio.
Yes.
Mr. Avia.
Yes?
Mr. Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Mill.
Yes.
Motion passes. Approval of contract services for counseling at Westmont High School. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the contract with Kate Moon Reese, Moon Wellness LLC, contractor of Oak and Elm Collective Therapy, and Westmont High School to provide counseling services to high school students from Westmont High School as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Dr. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Redonio.
Yes.
Mr. Avia.
Yes?
Mr. Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Mill.
Yes.
Ms. Conover.
Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, this is a recurring contract?
Yes, we had
This is multiple years?
Yes, it's the same contract we had last year.
Okay, superintendent's report.
The board asked for a report from summer school, but we're still awaiting some data, even though it was a successful summer school program. But Dr. Braun will present at the next, the September board meeting about the summer school, but just because you requested that. But she's still waiting for data to come in about the success of the program, so it's preliminary to have presented it tonight. We're about to start a great school year. I'm so confident it's going to be amazing. The data from last year is incredible, and we will do a full report on that. One of our big focuses was on make sure that students are in attendance, and it was incredible. We had almost 400 students who had 5 days or less missed, which was the goal, no more than 5. That's ambitious, but if students are not in school, they can't learn, and it's important that they're there every day possible. We know there are some medical exceptions from time to time, but for students to learn, they have to be present. And it's also teaching them resilience, it's teaching them commitment and dedication to their education and life skill of showing up and being present to win. The chronic absenteeism rate is, for our districts, one of the best in the state as a result of the commitment of the parents and the students to be there, and some incredible work by the admin team and the whole teaching staff. So Miller had like a 4.5% chronic absenteeism rate. That's down from 25% just 2 years ago, which is the state average. We tracked 8 counties, and the best district we could find was 5 to 6%. There were only a couple out of 8 counties, and Miller had 4.5%. That's off the charts. Sam and the team, incredible. We need to replicate that this year. Everybody has to be committed to that district-wide goal. At Manning, it was about 6.5%, which once again is outstanding. At the junior high, it was 4.6%, which, as I say, when you look at 8 counties and the best district has 5%, and these schools are getting 4.5%, it's just incredible work. The high school is in the top 1% for chronic absenteeism. Congratulations to Adam and the team at about 7.5%. Everybody's working their tails off, but it's got to be a whole district, all hands on deck, and that will lead us to just exemplary results.
Are we following that same kind of calendar schedule where we had long weekends built in a couple times?
We put that
was helpful, I thought.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
And not
Kevin.
that it wasn't the people also being dedicated, but
I think that was a partnership.
Combination, it's a combination.
Yeah, it's all these things coming together. So yes, we built a calendar again that gave families multiple opportunities to take long weekends as a family if that's what they wanted to do. And that's when people can go and be with their family and take vacation. And we know that's important too. But then on the scheduled school days, we need people in there to be present so the kids can learn. We are going to we're going to continue on that effort. We had incredible results. And we're going to continue that. We'll monitor it. We'll celebrate it when we do the whole report in the fall. We are asking families to commit to 20 minutes of reading a day at minimal at home, to have students reading to your kids. It's so powerful and important for their literacy skills. And we saw subsequently significant increases in our literacy performance this year at every single grade level. So we want to keep on working on that. So we are excited and ready for this upcoming school year. I know our admin team is fired up. We can't wait. We have a new teacher orientation again tomorrow, and we're excited to welcome those team members to the team. We have all staff is back next Monday, and we're going to get revved up for student attendance on Wednesday. So we can't wait to see the students we love and give them the best service possible, and I'm confident we're going to have a great year.
Awesome.
Right.
Board reports.
I just want to give a shout out, Westmont Band Camp happened, Miss Biederman. Students had a good time, you know, nice pictures, nice video. You know, my student had fun there, so thank you.
Okay, future meetings and events. First day of school for students, August 20th. Preschool screening, schedule it with South School if you are in need, August 22nd. First day of preschool, August 27th. Miller's curriculum night is August 28th from 5 to 6 p.m. Manning's curriculum night is also August 28th from 6:15 to 7:15 p.m. There is no school on Labor Day, which is September 1st. The Westmont High School open house is on September 3rd at 6:30 p.m. Westmont Junior High School's curriculum night is September 4th at 6 p.m. And our very next meeting of the regular board meeting of the COSD Board of Education is September 10th at 6:30 p.m. Is that right?
No, the 9th.
September 9th at 6:30 p.m. Be here or be square. Any communications? I don't think so. Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the August 12th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We made it, before 8:30.